Good morning. It is a lovely Friday morning. I think it's supposed to rain today. Or maybe not. It seems like it's going to rain outside. But I don't know how many viewers I'll get today. I don't think there's Cameron retrial today, but we got our decision from the judge today for our selective prosecution motion. So as you can see in the title, it has been denied. So I'm going to explain that here today. I'm streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble. The YouTube and Rumble channels are called People's Press Media. So if you haven't already, please go over there and subscribe to those channels. I usually go live pretty spontaneously to talk about random things to do with court cases, our court cases, and social issues. I've been an activist for the past 3 years. My name is Catherine Vitale. If you don't already know me, I was a candidate for Boston City Council last year, 2023. Hopefully, I will be a candidate again in 2025. I've been an activist for 3 years. I started my activism journey, technically in 2018 when I had a DCF situation with my kids. I started researching governmental things and corruption after being a victim of government corruption, and got involved in a political campaign in 2020. I was volunteering, doing a lot of work with that. And then I separated from that campaign at the end of 2020 and started my kind of like independent journey with activism. I was organizing protests and direct action against the COVID-19 lockdowns and vaccines and all of that. 2022, things changed a little bit. The activism kind of took a turn and came to Boston, because even though I'm from Boston, the specific actions that we were doing were not usually in Boston. It was pretty much all around Boston and the state of Massachusetts, outside of Boston. And then Michelle Wu became the mayor of Boston at the end of 2021. And as soon as she got into office, she enforced very strict vaccine mandates on the city workers of Boston. And they no longer had the option of taking the COVID test to go to work. They had to now either get the vaccine or lose their job. So there were literally thousands. The city of Boston employs like over 30,000 people, which is outrageous. But there were thousands of city workers, whether they be first responders, teachers, public works, thousands of city workers whose jobs were being threatened if they didn't take the COVID jab. And so there was a group, Boston First Responders United, that was fighting back against the vaccine mandates, and we were working with them. When I say we, I mean that we're determined and passionate to stand up to these like tyrannical policies that started, that we started noticing were getting stricter and stricter after 2020, during 2020 and after 2020. So, we started protesting Michelle Wu, and we immediately were extremely effective. So that's a very important aspect of this story, is that we weren't just we weren't just like going to spaces that she was in and holding signs and making noise, and that's it. We were very effective with our messaging. We were very effective with getting appropriate media coverage. And the Wu administration did not like that. So our very first protest that was put on with the efforts of our activism group and the Boston First Responders United had about 200 people at City Hall on December 20th, 2021, when Michelle Wu was giving a press conference on her new vaccine mandates. And it made national news. The whole country was talking about the resistance in Boston. And it was a good, peaceful, effective protest that we had at City Hall. We sang the national anthem. We yelled "Shame on Wu." That's when "Shame on Wu" was born. And it was effective in getting the appropriate coverage and embarrassing Michelle Wu on a national level, the very first protest. And so, because we were so effective, when another medical freedom group had planned for a rally in front of City Hall on January 5th, 2022, Michelle Wu tried to avoid the embarrassment again and closed City Hall, claiming that there was a spike in COVID cases. She closed City Hall on January 3rd, and the rally was planned for January 5th. So a couple of us said, well, if she's going to close City Hall, then she's working from home. So let's go protest in front of her house. And we did that. And again, peaceful, maybe a handful of people, maybe probably less than 10. Okay. And, we did some chants. We may have had somebody drumming on a bucket. Who knows? I don't remember the first day, honestly. And then videos from the protests in front of her house started getting circulated on the internet, and people were talking about that. And we continued to protest at her house, in front of her house, maybe 1 to 3 times per week, if that, for the next 3 months. We never went like multiple consecutive days in a row. We were never going every day. The protests were always peaceful. And I think that it's very important that people understand what peaceful means. Peaceful means nonviolent. Peaceful means not an act of war. It doesn't mean quiet. It doesn't mean not loud, right? So a lot of people think that because we use megaphones or instruments to make noise, that that's not peaceful. It absolutely is peaceful. And when you're dealing with a corrupt government and a tyrannical dictator, then essentially you are at war. So, regardless of what your stance is on vaccines or mandates or any of that, at the end of the day, it is an act of tyranny, treason, for a government official to force something onto the people. And they should be removed from office at the very least. And we were protesting to raise awareness, which is another thing that people don't tend to understand or grasp, is that the point of a protest is not to go, have a demonstration and then receive immediate results. The point of a protest is, immediate results as far as like policy change or anything like that. We never expected to go have a protest and then mandates would be over. Like that was never the goal because that's unrealistic, right? The point of a protest is to, to make the subject, whoever you're protesting, feel uncomfortable for what they've done, right? Shame them. And to raise public awareness for whatever issue or cause you're demonstrating for or against, right? And like I said, we were very effective. There were many times that we were on national news, conservative type news, Fox News, Newsmax. And our videos were shared by InfoWars, talked about, I think, on Steve Bannon maybe, and even local news was basically forced to cover it because national news was picking it up. And so we did make the front page of our local newspaper, the Boston Herald, quite a few times. And it was just like, it got to a point where the people who were paying attention to Boston politics were like waking up in the morning, like, what are they going to do next? And that was not good for Michelle Wu, right? So that's what I mean when I say that we were effective. There's other things that we did throughout the course of 2021 and 2022 that did actually produce results. We got the State House open. The Massachusetts State House was the longest closed state house in the country for COVID. It was closed over 700 days. And when we had gone there and did a little kind of like impromptu protest inside the State House, while it was still technically closed to the public, they tried to block the media from us, and it didn't work. And so that also got on the news. And then within a day or 3 days, I don't remember exactly, the State House was open to the public. Then after the State House opened to the public, they were requiring vaccine verification to get in the building. And a couple people not necessarily protested that, but they kind of like attempted to defy it. And in the process, 2 people got arrested. And then within 3 days again, the vaccine verification to get into the State House was ended, right? So it's basically like, get some bad press, and they change up their tune a little bit sometimes, right? And then myself and Sean Nelson, who also ran for Boston City Council at large with me last year, kind of had another impromptu protest in front of an elementary school that my cousin goes to, my little cousin. She decided she didn't want to wear a mask anymore, and then was bullied by her teachers and the school staff and sent home for refusing to wear a mask. And this was after the Massachusetts Department of Education had already ended the mask mandate, but Boston and like 2 or 3 other school districts going for their districts. So Boston was still in masks like 3 months after the statewide mandate ended. And because of my cousin being strong, my 9-year-old cousin, and refusing to wear the mask that day, and it like shifting us into like direct action protest mode, it got immediate media coverage because it was unexpected and nobody planned on this happening. And there was just 2 of us outside of the school. And the next day at 5 p.m., the Boston Public Schools mask mandate got lifted. And the thing is, the government will never tell you, like, this is a corrupt government that we're dealing with. Okay. Corruption goes throughout the country. I like to think that it runs much deeper in Massachusetts, but that's probably biased because that's the only government that I've dealt with is that of Massachusetts government. So I'm sure that there's probably somebody in every state that thinks that their state's the worst, maybe, or somebody in every municipality that thinks that their local government is the worst. But I do genuinely think that Massachusetts has it a lot worse than others when it comes to corruption, when it comes to things being swept under the rug. We're seeing it now with Karen Reed. And they get away with everything, and they know that they're going to continue to get away with everything. So they don't worry about people exposing them, because so far, no matter how much we expose them for what they do, they still remain in their positions, and we don't do anything about getting them out of there. But yeah, so we got the mask mandate ended. Of course, they will never give credit to the actual event that caused them to change their tune. They said that it was because they reached their threshold for COVID cases in the city, which was not true. Because if you actually look at the numbers, their threshold was like under, I want to say under 11 cases or 11% or some, the number was 11. Okay. And they were still at like 33. So they said they weren't ending the mask mandate until they got under the number 11, and they were at 32, 33. So they didn't get under their threshold. They ended the Boston mask mandate in the schools because of what happened at the Kenny School with myself, Sean Nelson, and my cousin Savannah. And then you know, I could literally go on and on and on about things that did happen as far as policy changes that happened directly because of the actions that we took. But today I'm going to talk about our case. So back to the protesting. We continued to protest at in front of Michelle Wu's house a couple times a week starting in January. And we started hearing from the local media about it. We started seeing articles come out about our protests and about how we were racist, white supremacist, misogynistic, anti-LGBTQ, hateful people is what they were saying about us. There were Black people protesting with us. There were Asian people protesting with us. There were gay people protesting with us. So apparently, all of those different classes of people must just be self-hating, you know, white supremacists, I suppose. And so it was not nice with the things that they were saying about us. We continued to protest, and the protesting kind of morphed into, it started because of the vaccine mandates, but then even after, you know, things happen in court, other things happen, you know, other actions were taken and other things happened outside of the protests in front of her house. There were also protests at the public press conferences. There were protests about other issues. We ended up joining also the North End in their fight against the discriminatory, retaliatory fines or fees that she was charging the North End to participate in outdoor dining. We ran a political campaign for that. I mean, pretty much anything that was anti-Wu at that point also became part of our fight, right? So at one point or another, every group, person, individual in Boston has had a problem with Michelle Wu. That's just the facts. Even people who have been on her political teams, right? She's not doing right by the city, period. And no matter what aspect you get, she's not doing right by the city. It's not an accident. It's not even necessarily the person, the individual person, Michelle Wu. She takes orders from higher ups that we don't even know about. She doesn't make her own decisions. She's told what to do. So a lot of people say that she's racist. She's not racist. Her husband and her kids are white. People say that they want Marty Walsh back, or Menino was better, or, prior mayors wouldn't have done the things that she's doing to ruin the city. That's not true. Whoever was put in this position, unless it was somebody like me, somebody who understands that things are corrupt, somebody who has the strength and the courage and the understanding to do what needs to be done to fix things, then it was going to be a puppet for United Nations, World Economic Forum, whoever is making the calls, calling the shots, whatever. It was, whoever was in that office was going to be a puppet. So it's not even necessarily Michelle Wu. That's the problem, because she doesn't make her own decisions. Regardless. The protest morphed from just being about vaccine mandates into North End issues and other first responder issues, other Boston Police Department issues. Like, there were a number of things that we had issues with Michelle Wu, and that other people had issues about with Michelle Wu. We weren't even the only group of people that was protesting her. She does neighborhood coffee hours from the spring to the fall. And we had 2 different times shown up, and there were other groups, other organizations there protesting her for other issues. But they weren't as effective as us. That's the thing. So either they weren't as effective as us, or they're likely being controlled by controlled op to just not be effective. But that's another story for another day. But the point is, we weren't the only ones protesting her. We weren't the only ones protesting mandates. We weren't the only ones protesting masks. But we were the most effective with our messaging and with our consistency. And that's why we got treated differently. So at the end of February, Michelle Wu makes a proposal to the city council to pass a new city ordinance, essentially banning our protests that are happening in front of her house. I'm going to bring the ordinance up if I can, so that I can read it, so that you can see what the actual wording is. Because this is another thing that needs to be clear with people. That a lot of people think that it was about the noise. It was not about the noise at all. We did have loud protests, and I can't even see like the updated ordinance. All I can see is her proposal. If you can, I know Michelle Effendi's watching. Can you just send me an image of the actual ordinance that passed? Because all I can see is the proposal. Let me know in the comments if you can send me the ordinance. So she makes a proposal for the ordinance, and it was like damn near overnight that they passed it. Okay, there is expiration dates for proposals and shit like that. I don't know exactly how it works, but the expiration date that they needed to like come to a decision or resolution or whatever on this was May 2nd. Okay, it was proposed February 8th. Immediately, they scheduled a public hearing to talk about the ordinance for March 14th. This ordinance, the way that it works is that when a proposal is made, the president of the city council assigns it to one of the committees, which the committees are made up of city councilors. So it was assigned to the Committee on Government Operations. I'll see if I can send it to myself. That's okay. So it was sent to the Committee on Government Operations, which at the time, the chair of that committee was Ricardo Arroyo. So he scheduled a public hearing. Yeah, okay, I have it. I'm going to send it to myself. I'm like, I don't have the end of it though. Like I have most of it, but I don't seem to have the whole thing. Weird. That's fine. So, they immediately had a public hearing. The Committee on Government Operations had a public hearing for it on March 14th, 2022. It was being held virtual. A few of us went to a city council meeting in person and approached Ricardo Arroyo. We have this on video. We asked him, can you please hold the meeting in person? Like at least do it hybrid because, okay, Michelle just sent me something. Hold on. Oh, that is the whole thing, I guess. Okay, I thought there was more on the end of it. But okay, so I have it right here. Excuse me. So we did approach Ricardo Arroyo. We asked for him to hold the meeting in person because at that point we had been, 2 years in on attending public hearings across the state, and we have the same we have the same outcomes at every single public hearing that we had ever been to, is that they mute and boot throughout the entire thing. They will shut your mic off if you're saying something that they don't like, that they disagree with, that's not on topic, even though in the open meeting law, when there's a public meeting, then each person who shows up to speak is supposed to be able to speak for a certain amount of time, regardless of what they're speaking on. They can't content of your speech, and yet they do it anyway. So we kind of pleaded with Ricardo Arroyo for a minute and said, we've been violated in many public hearings across the state, and we get muted and we get kicked out. Some of us can't even get in. And basically you're not allowed to show up to these things and disagree with the public officials, right? So let's see. I'm going to share my screen on this thing. Okay. So let me see what we can see here. So this is the actual ordinance. Let me get back to that screen. Nope. Okay. So it says, be it ordained by the City Council of Boston as follows. Section 1, the City of Boston Code Ordinances is hereby amended in Chapter 16 by inserting the following new section after Section 1662, 1663, which correction is actually 1664. An ordinance regarding targeted residential picketing. It shall be unlawful for any person to engage in targeted residential picketing between the hours of 9 p.m. and 9 a.m., which basically tightens the already existing noise ordinance, which pretty much every municipality has their own noise ordinance. Hold on my chair. Every municipality has their own noise ordinance, pretty much, I think. It's typically like 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And that's what we had already. And we were being respectful. We were being very respectful of the already existing noise ordinance. We never went to her house or started making any noise before 7 a.m. Okay. That was a problem for them because they like for people to actually violate laws so that they can charge them criminally for things. But we didn't violate any laws with our protests. So that's where we messed up. Okay. So it says for the purpose of this section, targeted residential picketing means picketing, protesting, or demonstrating with or without signs that is specifically directed toward one or more occupants of a particular residence and which takes place before or about the particular targeted residence. Those residential picketing between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. remain subject to all other ordinances and state statutes, including but not limited to laws concerning excessive noise, disturbing the peace, harassment, and blocking of streets and sidewalks. Any violation of this section shall be punishable by a fine of $50 for the first offense in any 12-month period, $150 for the second offense in a 12-month period, and then $300 for third and subsequent offenses in a 12-month period, meaning after 12 months, if you've only had one offense, then you got another one after 12 months, you start over back at one. All fines issued under this section shall be enforced pursuant to the non-criminal disposition procedures, which procedures are incorporated herein by reference, which basically means it's a civil infraction. They can't arrest you for it. They can only give you a fine, and you got to go to court if you want to fight the fine. You can appeal just like any other parking ticket or anything like that. What I thought it also said at the bottom that I don't see here, there is another piece at the bottom that says that they're not allowed to put information on people gathered because of this ordinance into the BRIC game database. That's also at the end of it. I don't know why it's not. It doesn't say that there. But so anyhow, so they had the hearing. I actually am going to do a video on the hearing, I think tomorrow. I'm not going to do all of that today, but I am going to go over the hearing tomorrow because I do think that people need to see it again. People may have not seen it the first time. There was tons of opposition, tons of crazy things said by the city councilors that it's just like, how are these people so stupid? How are these people in office? We know why they're in office, right? Because they need stupid puppets to be leading us into where they're leading us into, right? They need stupid puppets that are going to convince the masses of people that the things that are happening are for our benefit, right? So we know why they're in office, but it's just like, I wish that I could say that I had more faith in American people, in people that live in Boston, in people who vote. I wish that I could have more faith in them, but the people who we actually work for and elect into office is absolutely ridiculous. And you can, like, we can argue all day. Because, you know, on a national level, like, I know what happened in 2020. We won't get into what happened in 2020. But on a local level, I'm watching it before my eyes. Okay. I was a candidate last year. I will tell you that the numbers do accurately reflect the campaigns. Okay. In my opinion, what I've seen by working on so many campaigns and by being a candidate myself, I do not see any nonsense happening with the machines on a local level. Okay. So think what you want about elections, but being a candidate and somebody who works on campaigns, they don't have to go to those extremes, at least in Boston and in Massachusetts, I don't think, because the voters are just that uneducated and unaware of what's happening. And that is the voters that show up, because the vast majority of people that live here don't even vote. And even the vast majority, not the vast majority, but a good amount of people who are registered to vote don't show up to vote. So we are electing these people into office, unfortunately. A lot of us are not using our brains. A lot of us are being tricked and manipulated. And I don't blame that on anybody. If I was also once, you know, at a time in my life being tricked and manipulated, and then I had, you know, some very awakening moments that I hope that everybody has at some point so that we can get ourselves out of this. But I'm going to be going over the hearing and the working session and the actual passing of the ordinance over the next couple of days. So hopefully you'll come back to watch for that. But today we just happened to get this decision this morning from our judge. This is why I wanted to come on and tell the full story of what's been happening in court for the past 2 years. So anyway, they held a hearing. The hearing, even people who worked for Michelle Wu came into that hearing and said, listen, I hate these protesters and I hate their cause and I hate everything about them, but this ordinance is self-serving. It's actually embarrassing that Michelle Wu is even proposing something like this. And I really hope that this doesn't pass, because it's a clear violation of the First Amendment and there will be unintended consequences for people on the other side. So, and a couple of city councilors said that too. Okay. And, you know, you can read it and see that it clearly, you know, it's just tightening the hold on free speech. So they had their hearing on March 14th, and they had a working session on March 25th, 2022. A working session is basically where they deliberate all of the different aspects of the docket, whatever, at hand. They have professionals come in to advise them. They had the city legal counsel, which is like a third party that they hire. Like they use our money to pay for their own legal counsel, a third party legal counsel, Adam Cedarbaum, and then the Boston police. So they have the police in the working session, they have the lawyer in the working session, and then the city councilors, so that they can all talk about like the different aspects of the ordinance, how they can lawfully word it so that it's not, you know, so that it is legal and able to like withstand, you know, constitutionality, all that, right? And yeah, her neighbors said the same thing. People who could hear the protesters in the morning, they said, don't do this. Like they told her and the city council, not to pass this ordinance. So anyway, they had their working session. The working session was 3 hours long, and it like, it's like when this happened, the first time I saw it, I already knew what types of people we were dealing with on the city council, but this working session blew my mind at the things that they thought were acceptable things to say publicly. the way that they talked specifically about our protests being the ones that they were targeting, like us specific people being the ones that they were targeting in the passage of this city ordinance. Like, this is the most unconstitutional thing that is happening right before our eyes, that it's just like these elected officials, like we are that far into corruption where these elected officials, some of them are lawyers, they think that it is any way legal or constitutional to say the things that they're saying, and they think that because we don't do anything about it. Like, people complain all day, every day about how corrupt things are. Excuse me. You will see literally hundreds of people show up at Karen Reed hearings and at Turtle Boy events, and like, don't get me wrong. Also, they think Karen Reed is guilty and want to see, see her get the justice she deserves. Although I don't think she'll be found guilty, but I also don't think that they will press charges against anybody else. So I don't think that John O'Keefe will ever actually get justice. And I'm friends with a lot of people who are, following the Karen Reed case, or who are showing up to her trial dates and all of that. And it's like hundreds of people will show up for that. Like, I get it. It's a big story. It's somebody being framed for murder by the government. So there's that. But it's things like this and things like everyday happenings in local government that people just don't even look at. They don't even pay attention to it. Or if they do pay attention to it, it's like a conversation and then that's it. Like, why are people still not showing up to local governmental meetings? Like, it's been 4 years of everybody like coming to a realization of how corrupt things are. Like, if you didn't know before 2020, then you definitely know now. And if you don't know now, then you may never know, right? So like millions and millions of people have been awakened over the past 4 years. We know how corrupt things are. Like, if you can wrap your head around somebody being framed for murder by the local police and local government and the state troopers are in, like, if you can wrap your head around that and you're watching it right in front of you and you're watching this trial play out. I've also been watching the trial play out. And you're watching this trial play out and you are looking at these people on the stand telling bold-faced lies and the judge just fucking going right along with it. And everybody knows the fucking details of the case. Everybody knows the people are fucking destroying their phones and nobody, like, the judge doesn't give a shit, right? And like, it's just, and the DA's office doesn't give a shit, right? And it's like, people still are just brushing off the everyday corruption that is significantly, I'm sorry, more important than this murder trial. Because guess what? The government, the police would not be able to conspire to frame somebody for murder if they didn't get away with other acts of corruption the way that they do every single day. Okay? I'm sorry, but Karen Reed's case is not unique. These things happen way more often than we know. The other case that we know of is Sean Ellis' case, where in, I want to say 1993, he was arrested and did about 20 years in prison for the murder of a Boston police to do with. And even though he did get out of prison and he didn't, his case got like dismissed or what, I don't even know what's considered. He wasn't exonerated. He wasn't made whole. There was a settlement that, we don't know about, I suppose, but they didn't publicly come out and say, like, we're sorry, he's innocent. They actually, like, kind of said the opposite. Like, they said, like, we know he's guilty, but it's 20 years later and we're not going to retry the case. So, it's like, Karen Reed's case is not unique. Things like this happen all the fucking time. This case just so happened to get picked up by the right media outlet, Turtle Boy, who wasn't going to let it go. Okay. And who was going to go all out and make sure that Karen Reed was brought to justice, even though John O'Keefe is likely not going to be getting the justice that he deserves. So, I mean, I don't know if it's luck. I don't know if it's money. I don't know, right place, right time. Who knows? But it's the media coverage and Turtle Boy are the only reason that people are paying attention to this Karen Reed case. Okay. If Turtle Boy wasn't a part of it, it wouldn't be going down the way that it's going down. People wouldn't be all eyes on it the way that they are. Okay. So, and there's many other corrupt cases, like to the point where it's like, you can actually look at prisons, how some of us look at DCF and how, it's a business. At the end of the day, all of these entities are businesses. So if they don't have, or the medical system, right? You have to look at all of these industries the same. If they don't have consistent cycle of people going in and out, then tons of people would be out of jobs. They need to have criminals to operate prisons and courts. They need to have criminals. Just like the hospital needs people to be sick. Just like DCF needs parents to fuck up. When they come into your home and they probe into everything, it's not that you're a bad parent, it's that they have a quota to fill. Okay? When you're getting pulled over by the police, it's not necessarily that you even did anything wrong or that you didn't do something that they would have ignored 90% of the time, but right now they have a quota to fill and you were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's of like government as we know it operates, is that these people in places wouldn't be in business if they didn't have people to violate, So nothing is organic anymore. Nothing is real anymore. Nothing is honest. Nobody has integrity. Nothing is done with dignity or respecting the dignity of another person. Everything is corrupt. So I would even go so far as to say, are the people who are, what percentage of people doing time in prison or in jail are actually guilty? Like, look at how sloppy this Karen Reed case is being handled in public eye. If they are this sloppy with this case that they know the whole world is watching, think about how sloppy they are in cases that we're not watching. I, for one, have seen many police reports in my life before and during my activism world that I'm in, right? I've never seen a police report ever to be accurate. Ever. Police are sloppy. Police are, don't get me wrong. I have respect and, I think there is an honor in somebody who shows up and does the job in an honest way, somebody who puts their life on the line to either, protect somebody in a situation, save somebody in a situation, stop, prevent a dangerous situation from happening. There are police who put their lives on the line. And I respect that, okay? And I support people like that. I just wonder how many of them are in the job just like to have that sense of authority, just because, they feel like it gives them authority over people, right? it's like, it's disgusting, when you think about how much corruption happens on a daily basis, and we just get on with our everyday lives and we don't pay attention to any of it. Like, we need to pay attention to it. We need to call it out everywhere that we see it. When somebody is flashing a situation in our face, we should see how we can be a part of helping that situation. I've never, ever been contacted by somebody for one situation or another, regardless of what type of situation it is, and not put at least some amount of time into figuring how I can be of help to this situation. People call me all the time about DCF situations, or about, way back when with the mandate, with the mask mandates. And I have never gotten a phone call from somebody asking me for help and not helped. Like, yeah, I can't always show up in person. I can't always organize a protest against something, but I can say, I can't help you, but I know this person and that person that is in your area. Maybe you guys can figure out something together. Like, I've never not heard of a situation and been like, nothing we can do about that. Like, every time I hear about a situation, I'm like, we need to put it in the public eye. We need to bring attention to it. We need to raise awareness for it. And like, I don't really ever meet anybody that thinks like that. So it's like, if you are being like a victim of corruption, no matter what aspect, you should be like standing in the streets screaming about it, like waving red flags, like, hello, like, somebody pay attention to what is going on over here. I'm being violated. Like, that's how big of a deal it is. Whether it's somebody trying to force you to wear a mask in a grocery store, or somebody trying to frame you for murder, it's all a big deal, because every tiny little injustice leads to massive corruption and potential eventual loss of freedom for all of us. Like, that's the thing at the end of the day. So I'm sorry, I know I digress, but these things are important. But back to the topic at hand. They have, they passed the ordinance, and then they passed the ordinance at the end of March. So they rushed it. Okay. She proposed it on February 8th. They had a public hearing on March 14th. They had a working session on March 25th, which was out of this world. And again, I will be doing videos over the next couple of days to talk about the hearing, the working session, and the city council meeting where they took the vote. There's 13 city councilors, and the vote against passing the ordinance. And it passed on March 30th of 2022. And then went into effect April 1st. Now, nobody ever got fined. I repeat, there was never a $50 fine issued to anybody for the ordinance once it passed. Once it passed, a detective showed up the next time on April 1st and April 4th. Detectives started showing up, gathering data on us, running license plates, compiling their database on who we were, okay? Which it specifically says in the ordinance that we were not supposed to be. They were not supposed to gather data on us. They were not supposed to put us in their database, right? People who were there the first couple days of April got a summons in the mail. I think it was about 8 people got a summons in the mail. And were made to come into West Roxbury Courthouse for a clerk magistrate's hearing. That was April 14th and April 15th. There were a couple people that were scheduled for the 14th, a couple people scheduled for the 15th. At the clerk magistrate's hearings, everybody got dismissed. Nobody was made to pay the fine, whatever, right? Those clerk magistrate's hearings, although they were in fact official court proceedings, the clerk magistrate took these people into a room with no video recording. So there is zero record of these clerk magistrate's hearings, which is why, another huge issue, we should be allowed to have courts and cameras so that we can keep our own record. Okay, again, another issue to talk about or another day, but it's very important. We should be able to have our own cameras in courthouses. I don't care about anybody's fucking privacy. You're in a public courthouse. All of the proceedings that are happening here are public. And if you want to have a private hearing, you should have to request that. We should be allowed to record whatever we want to record in a courthouse. And that's a fight that needs to be stepping up to fight that fight. But it needs to be had. You shouldn't have to fucking get approval from the Supreme Justice Court for, being a member of the press, a recognized member of the press, because some people who are reporters, the SJC just doesn't consider them sufficient enough to be categorized as a member of the press. It's fucking ridiculous. We have freedom of the press. Nobody should have to be credentialed to be able to walk into a courtroom with a camera. Okay, period. Courtrooms are public. Anyway, those court magistrate hearings were not recorded in any way. So we have no record of those ever even happening aside from the summons notes, right? Or the summons letters that they got in the mail. Then, about a week later, 10 days later, the first arrest is made in front of Michelle Wu's house. Shannon Llewellyn gets arrested. The people that were with her opted not to get arrested and left. But the cop, Sergeant Steve O'Brien, said, you have 5 minutes to leave or you're going to be arrested. So Shannon got arrested. They charged her with violation of the ordinance, which is a civil infraction, not arrestable, and with Mass General Law, Chapter 272, Section 59, 272-59, which is willful violation of a city ordinance. So basically they usually use that charge for somebody who's drunk and disorderly in the public and causing a nuisance, won't stop after being told to stop. People like that. Okay. It's used to be able to apprehend somebody who is under the influence and out of control. Okay. Why would there be a fine structure of first time, second time, third, and subsequent times if they were going to, on your second time, arrest you and charge you with willful violation of a city ordinance? Listen, it doesn't matter. First of all, again, I'm going to say, it doesn't say anything about noise. I just read it to you. It doesn't say anything about noise in the ordinance, okay? There is already an existing noise ordinance, as there is in every municipality. 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. You can't make excessive noise, okay? Which People don't abide by that anyway. I have neighbors who throw parties that blast Spanish music until 5 o'clock in the morning, like for 5 days straight. Okay. And nobody cares. Nobody does anything about that. Right. If you can run a lawnmower, this is the argument that we always revert back to. If you can run a lawnmower at 7 a.m., okay, if you can run a jackhammer at 7 a.m., if construction can happen, if buses can be riding by and you can hear announcements on the buses, all types of things that can happen that is not policed in any way at 7 a.m., then I can fucking exercise my First Amendment protected speech in the street at 7 a.m. and ring a fucking cowbell or blow a whistle or bang some drums or pots and pans or whatever type of noise that I want to make. You can't enforce the law on me differently than any other person because you don't like what I'm saying or because you disagree with me or because I annoy you. That's not how things work in a free society. Okay? We are not free. Our freedoms that we were given by our Constitution, Declaration of Rights, God-given at birth, inalienable rights, we don't have those right now. Okay? So if you think we do, you need a reality check. We are not free people. When they are able to police us, and it's zero effort for them, and they don't even think twice before doing these things because they either know that they can get away with it or they don't even understand at this point that they're doing anything wrong. They are just following orders and they don't even think about it. Okay? They don't even know that they're doing something wrong. And those who do know that they're doing something wrong have either left the field, left the job, left the state, left the city. Who knows? They're not around anymore. Got fired for being too honest, right? For having too much integrity. And everybody that's working in these positions is a puppet of the establishment. Somebody who has sold their soul, somebody who has sold out, somebody who cares more about their position and their reputation and their status more than they do about having morals and doing. Okay. They don't even understand that what they're doing is wrong, unconstitutional, complete violation of people's rights. Okay, that's how far it has gotten. So, Shannon gets arrested and charged with willful violation of a city ordinance. We go into court the same day that she's arrested, and it's Judge Coffey, who is the current judge presiding over this case that we have now. So keep that in mind, okay? She goes before Judge Coffey, Kathleen Coffey of West Roxbury Court. Same woman who established the homeless court of Boston, some like reverse fucking discrimination shit, where homeless people don't get treated as harshly as anybody else when they commit like crimes that can be considered like if they weren't homeless, would we be having this type of problem with them? Like homeless people get special treatment in the courts with this woman, okay? And although many people see that as a compassionate thing, I see it as either you're applying the law equally to all people or you're not. And you're not, okay? So Shannon goes before her and Judge Coffey, like, she's like white in the face, like she goes pale. And as she's looking at the charge and Shannon and all of us in the courtroom, and she's like, why? Like, why is this person arrested right now? Like, this is a civil infraction. And the DA's office says the same thing. They're like, the Commonwealth holds no position because this is a civil infraction. So, like, everybody in the fucking, the courtroom is like, what went down that the police just did this, right? Like, why would they arrest her for a civil infraction? Like, oh no, like you messed up, right? So Judge Coffey's just trying to get rid of it. And she's like, we can resolve, says to Shannon, like, we can resolve this today. you know, we can be done with it. It can be dismissed, blah, 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 blah. And Shannon's like, no, I want a lawyer. Like, I want to know why I'm standing here in handcuffs and shackles. And the judge looks at her like she's stupid and is like, no, I said we can resolve this today. Like, this can be done here today, right now. Like, you don't even need a lawyer. Like, the DA's office is not fighting this. We can let you go and everything can be done right now. And this charge will be off of your record. And Shannon's like, no, I want to come back with a lawyer. I want to know why this happened in the first place. I was holding a sign in front of the mayor's house. I did nothing wrong. I was well within my rights. And I'm standing here in shackles and I want to know why. So gets continued to another date. Shannon comes back with her lawyer. Long story short, with that one, nothing really needed to be done. The next judge that got it, Judge Key, dismissed it. I want to say maybe in September. I could be wrong about that. She was arrested in April. So maybe like August, September. Dismissed it maybe in July. I don't know. Correct me in the comments if you can. Dismissed it saying that it was a wrongful arrest. It was an unlawful arrest. It should have never happened. Whatever. So that was that, right? Then in June 29th. So wait, June 10th. There had been like other protests, not at Michelle Wu's house, but like at some parades and like other public events that Michelle Wu had been at. There had been random protests and people approaching her and, you know, whatever. Again, I will say that every time that we've done direct action or protests or anything like that, first of all, we have cameras going. We usually have multiple cameras going and we're usually streaming live so that everybody always sees all aspects of what we're doing and the fact that we are not violent. We are not, doing anything unlawful. We are completely 100% well within our protected rights to do all of the things that we do when we are doing a direct action, public action, whatever you want to call it, right? So, I mean, there's been many times that Michelle Wu has been this close to me, okay? And nothing alarming has ever happened because nothing would ever happen because I have no intention on ever being violent or dangerous ever at all. And like the main purpose of everything that we do is to make them feel uncomfortable with our words, shame them with our words, to make a lot of noise, to raise awareness among the people around us, okay? Because people need to understand what's going on, and they don't. So, we've never been violent, okay? We've never threatened anybody. We've never done anything or said anything threatening. We have only used our words to make these people feel shame and embarrassment, okay? And words are not violence. And we have proven and shown time and time and time and time and again that we have no bad intentions, no violent intentions. We are not hateful people. We are not violent people, okay? Are we rude? Maybe. Are we disruptive? Yeah, because a protest is meant to be disruptive. That's what a protest is. You're supposed to disrupt things. You're supposed to do things that cause people to pay attention to the issue at hand. Okay? You're supposed to be loud. Being loud is not a crime. Swearing is not a crime. Being rude is not a crime. Even, I don't do like hate speech and like vulgar words or anything like that. But even if somebody did, You cannot police somebody's speech. That is what the First Amendment of the Constitution protects. That is what Article 16 of the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights protects, is for us to say whatever we want to say, wherever we want to say it. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, okay? If somebody's racist and only saying things with their mouth, that's on them, okay? They have the right to do that. Although that's not our prerogative, somebody who does that has the right to do that. Do I agree with it? No. Do I condone it? No, but it's their right, okay? Just like Frank Baker said, when they took the vote on this ordinance, he said, do I think that they should be outside of somebody's house at 7 o'clock in the morning making all this noise? No, but it's their right to do so, okay? Once we open the door with all this hate speech, hate crime bullshit, then we are giving them the authority that they should not have, that they do not have, giving over the authority for them to police our speech, which is extremely dangerous, okay? Because once they control and police speech over here, then they can do it over here, then they can do it over here, and then before you know it, people are getting framed for murder, people are getting convicted of crimes that they didn't commit, people can't report accurately, people are getting sent to jail for intimidation of a witness when they are well within their rights of what they're allowed to do according to the Constitution and the Constitution of the country and the Constitution of the state. That's how we get there, okay? That's how we have Turtle Boy in jail as a political prisoner for intimidation of a witness. Because at one point, we have allowed them to police our speech. And because we allowed them one time, now they're going to do it everywhere that they feel like it's necessary, okay? That's how censorship happens. That's how they are able to silence people who speak out against them, okay? That's how they are able to say, this person that is promoting this misinformation and these conspiracy theories needs to be put away because they are a danger to society, okay? Because we allow them to do that. So, yeah, I'm going to be rude, and yeah, I'm going to be loud and blow a whistle and ring a fucking cowbell and swear and bang on a drum, because we need to be alerting the people that there's something wrong here and they need to pay attention. So anyway, Shannon gets arrested. Her case gets dismissed. June 10th. After random protests have happened throughout the city, there ends up being an email sent from Dave Vittorini, who is an employee of Mayor Michelle Wu, to the Boston police, with a list of 15 names on it. My name is on the list. Michelle Effendi in the comments names is on the list. Shannon's name is on the list. Other people who have been effective in vocally opposing Michelle Wu's policies, names are on the list, including some restaurant owners from the North End, and some other people who had protested her, right? So, and Joe DePina. So, we ended up, the list ended up being publicized a year after the fact, so nobody really knew about it until a year later. However, the list was established and sent in an email from Mayor Wu's office to the Boston police on June 10th, okay? June 22nd, Sean Nelson gets tackled by the police at Ronan Park and arrested for opposing Wu with a megaphone in a public park, for saying things that they didn't like. For another day, but that case is also still open, okay? And nobody gave a shit that a black man was being tackled by 5 police officers in the park in Dorchester, which is in Boston. June 29th, 19 days after the list with our names on it has been sent to the police, and the police have started taking action against us on, essentially on behalf of Michelle Wu, right? 4 of us show up to protest. There's a couple people there, like reporters with cameras and stuff. 4 of us show up to protest the ordinance, okay? We were not protesting vaccine mandates. We were not protesting masks. We had a sign that said shame on Wu. We were yelling shame on Wu and things about the ordinance, okay? We were protesting the ordinance. We were saying free speech is not a crime. That's what we were chanting, okay? So now I'm trying to figure out how I want to position this, because I want to start going through the things that the judge said in this decision, okay? So June 29th is when we were arrested. Immediately, the other 2 girls, Danielle and Marie, who were arrested with us and given the same charges as us, their cases were dismissed immediately. Okay? Clearly, because their names are not on Wu's enemies list. That's why. Okay? So the case starts on June 29th, and it's still going on right now. Okay? We're scheduled for trial next month, in July. We just finished an argument. We made a motion for selective prosecution, a motion to prove selective prosecution. Okay. We've been dealing with this motion for like 8 months, maybe 9 months was when we first filed this motion. We started off with one lawyer. That lawyer ended up not working out, so we switched to a different lawyer. And, basically the summary of it is that we've been at this for 2 years. Okay. And our last thing that we did was file this motion based on selective prosecution, saying that they are prosecuting us differently than they have prosecuted other people in similar situations. Okay. The thing with our motion is that the selective prosecution was based on the content of our speech. Okay. Based on viewpoint discrimination, which I didn't agree with that angle because of a few reasons, but this isn't exactly the route that I wanted to take with this motion, but it's the route that we took. So basically, I'm going to read this decision from the judge. Okay. So it says, we just got this decision in today. Okay. And we have trial scheduled for July 17th. If this decision were not denied, if it were accepted or approved or whatever, then that would have been probably the end of our case. It would have gotten dismissed shortly after, because then we had proved that we were being selectively prosecuted. However, it was denied, so we carry on. So she says the defendants in this case, Catherine and Shannon, are charged with disturbing the peace in violation of General Law, Chapter 272, Section 53. The Commonwealth alleges that on June 29th, 2022, at approximately 7:30 a.m., they participated in a protest outside the residence of Mayor Michelle Wu in Roslindale. The subject of the protest was the government policy regarding COVID-19 vaccinations for city workers and the requirement for immunization. I'm going to stop there because we're only on the second sentence here, and already that is not a fact. That is not true. That's not what happened. Okay. I will reiterate. I've never seen a police report to be accurate, and many court documents that I have seen over my time that I've had issues in courts, they don't give a shit about getting anything right, which should be very alarming okay? Because details matter. Our protest that day was not about government policy regarding COVID vaccinations for city workers and the requirement for immunization. That's not what we were protesting about at all. So the fact that we spent 8 months drawing this motion, working on this motion, and providing this argument, and the judge at this point still doesn't even know why we were protesting, but we are basing our argument on viewpoint discrimination. She should know why we were protesting, okay? So I understand that that's a problem with my defense. But it's just like COVID vaccination and the subject of the protest. It is further alleged that the protest involved loud chanting and the banging on a cooking pot, which caused public annoyance, inconvenience, and alarm. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. Banging on a cooking pot, which caused public annoyance, inconvenience, and alarm to the residents of the neighborhood. Again, I'm going to say we are engaging in protected First Amendment activity. It has been already determined in prior case law that nobody is supposed to be charged with disturbing the peace while engaging in First Amendment protected activity like protesting, peaceful assembly. Okay? You cannot tell me that I am disturbing the peace with my voice, my megaphone, my cowbell when I am doing something that is meant to disturb the peace. But somebody could come down the street with a fucking lawnmower or a jackhammer that is going to be way louder than my voice or even my megaphone. And are they going to get cited? Are they going to get arrested for disturbing the peace? So the next time I hear somebody mowing their lawn, can I call the cops and have that person arrested? Is that what's going to happen? Because that would be annoying to me. That would be inconvenient to me. That would alarm me, okay? To be woken up to the sound of a lawnmower or a jackhammer, okay? Or a police siren. Can I call the police on the police for waking me up with sirens all through the night? You know, during the time when things are supposed to be quiet, during the regular noise ordinance period? Like, that's okay. But me shouting in the street is not okay because I have annoyed the people that disagree with why I'm shouting. So had I been shouting for abortion rights, LGBTQ rights, Black rights, women's rights, anything that they did agree with, would they have been calling the cops on me? Would I have been arrested? I don't think so. Okay? So, cause public annoyance, inconvenience, and alarm to the residents of the neighborhood. Mind you, there were 2 911 calls. One of the 911 calls, the guy said, I'm only calling because of the ordinance. The other person, from inside her house, you could hear in the background nothing, and she had to go out to her front porch to hear what we were saying. She couldn't hear us from inside her house, but we were disturbing her. What? So, police were called to the scene, and 4 individuals, including Vitale and Llewellyn, were arrested. The Commonwealth moved to dismiss prior to arraignment the cases involving co-defendants Brady and Mazzio, which That's not even co-defendants. We're 4 separate people. Brady and Mazzio. At the time of the arrest, defendant Vitale had a prior charge of disturbing the peace from the Central Division of the Boston Municipal Court, which was dismissed. Like, dismissed. Okay, so what? Oh, and in that case, they tried to charge me with assault and battery on a police officer, and I had video of the police officers actually assaulting me. But those charges were dismissed. So what? And defendant Llewellyn had a prior charge of disturbing the peace from the West Roxbury Division of Boston Municipal Court. No, she didn't. She wasn't charged with disturbing the peace. She was charged with the ordinance and willful violation of the ordinance. Neither of those are a disturbing the peace charge. And also dismissed and ruled by the judge as unlawful arrest. Therefore, she didn't do it. So it backs up our argument even more of the fact that we are being targeted because they're literally conspiring and looking for ways to arrest us. Like, they tried to arrest her and it didn't work, so they had to try again. Okay? The defendants have filed a motion to dismiss the complaint on the grounds of selective prosecution. They argue that the decision by the Commonwealth to proceed with prosecution amounts to unfair and selective prosecution, where protesters engaging in similar and more serious offenses have been treated with greater leniency, which is completely true. We have a compiled list, document, paperwork, a stack of almost 300 cases in similar situations in residential areas while protesting, some of them actually committing crimes, who got more leniency than us. Their cases were dismissed prior to arraignment or shortly thereafter. They were offered community service, which we were never offered community service. Don't get me wrong, I would never take community service. But we were never offered that. We were never offered anything. From day one, they wanted to relentlessly prosecute us and let go the other 2 who were not on Wu's list. Okay? And they claim that they let go the other 2 because we were like repeat offenders, because we had both previously been arrested for the same thing, which was not true. They claim that this disparity and one-sided enforcement is based on the content of their protest message and amounts to viewpoint discrimination in violation of equal protection rights under the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution and protected freedom of speech and the right to assembly guaranteed under the First Amendment. The defendants rely upon recent decisions from federal courts to support their arguments that a motion to dismiss for selective prosecution may be raised based on viewpoint discrimination involving political speech and social protest. United States v. Rondo from 2024 and Frederick Douglass Foundation, Inc. v. District of Columbia 2023. In support of the motion to dismiss, the defendants have engaged in extensive discovery and have submitted numerous court documents and exhibits, including photographs, news stories, and internal government emails. The court has reviewed and considered all the submitted materials. The Commonwealth challenges the defendants' motion and states that neither the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court nor the Massachusetts Appeals Court has upheld a viewpoint discrimination selective prosecution claim in a criminal case. It maintains that the federal lower court cases cited by the defendants are non-binding and have no persuasive value or applicability to the defendants' cases. Moreover, the Commonwealth states that the defendants have failed to demonstrate that they were treated differently from similarly situated defendants. Discussion and rulings of law. In Commonwealth, the Supreme Judicial Court reinforced the legal principle that prosecutors and other law enforcement officials enjoy considerable discretion in exercising some selectivity for purposes consistent with the public interest. See also Commonwealth v. King, 1977, Euler v. Boyles, 1962. And because it is presumed that prosecutions are undertaken in good faith, the defendant bears the initial burden of demonstrating selective enforcement by presenting evidence that raises a reasonable inference of impermissible discrimination. There must be a showing that, 1, a broader class of persons than those prosecuted have violated the law, which we did. 2, failure to prosecute was either consistent or deliberate. It was. Because both of us, they didn't prosecute because they couldn't have, because they lied. Or, no. They lied. So they couldn't prosecute. So basically it's like, it's almost as if they use our first cases. It was set up in a way that they could use this argument, right? Because law is like playing chess. Like, you have to think a couple of points ahead. They knew we were going to come back. They knew that fines weren't going to deter us from protesting. So they literally structured every single aspect of this to get us to the point where they could keep us tied up in court for fucking years and get people to stop protesting the mayor, right? And 3, the decision not to prosecute was based on an impermissible classification such as race, religion, or sex. So First Amendment doesn't matter to these people. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Declaration of Rights, none of that matters to the courts. What matters is case law piled on top of case law, and new laws piled on top of new laws that undermine the Constitution and are contradictory to the Constitution. And because we are not of a protected class, that matters more than our protected speech. That we're protected by the First Amendment and Article 16 of the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights. The fact that we're not of a protected class matters more than those things. So the Supreme Judicial Court emphasized that when viewing a claim of unfair selective prosecution, judicial scrutiny is necessary to protect individuals from prosecution based on arbitrary or otherwise impermissible classifications. Quoting Commonwealth v. Bernardo B. from 2009. The defendants have presented considerable evidence regarding the treatment of political social protesters, their subsequent arrests by the Boston police, and the favorable dispositions most received from the courts, which resulted in dismissals pre and post arraignments. There is no question that the decision by the Commonwealth not to prosecute individuals arrested for political protest and to offer each an outright dismissal pre-arraignment or upon completion of community service was deliberate. The defendants are not alleging discrimination based on their membership in a protected class. They argue that they are targets of viewpoint discrimination and the classification is arbitrary and otherwise constitutionally impermissible. Based upon the credible evidence presented and the reasonable inferences to be drawn, I find that the defendants have established a reasonable inference of selective prosecution by the Commonwealth. The constitutional protections of freedom of speech and expression of political and social beliefs are firmly grounded in the First Amendment and equal protection principles under the 5th and 14th Amendments. a claim that law enforcement is engaging in one-sided enforcement based upon the subject matter of a protest raises legitimate constitutional concerns. In rebuttal, the Commonwealth contends that the evidence presented is insufficient to establish discriminatory selective prosecution. Specifically, the Commonwealth states that the level of analysis and broad brush approach and arguments fail to properly demonstrate that individuals situated in similar situations were treated differently based on their viewpoints or political agendas. Decision and order. I find the decision by the Commonwealth to proceed against the defendants for the charge of disorderly conduct does not constitute a violation of their equal protection or amendment rights and does not meet criteria of selective prosecution. Both defendants in this case had previously been arrested for engaging in disorderly conduct as protests for the city's COVID-19 vaccination mandate. Both individuals had their cases dismissed and received a favorable disposition. A pattern of political protest resulting in disorderly conduct differentiates the many examples presented by the defendants in support of their claim. No, it doesn't. Just because we annoy you on a multiple day a week basis, just because we annoy you in multiple different places, and just because you have wrongfully arrested us before for this, doesn't justify you saying that this is a pattern. Like, yeah, it's a pattern of you trying to silence us. It's a pattern of the government specifically targeting certain people whose names are on a government enemies list. Like, are you shitting me? Our names are on a hit list sent out by the mayor's office. And because of that, the police are being pressured to handle us differently than they handle other people that do the exact same things as us. Okay? Everybody's in on it. Nobody goes against each other when it comes to the government. Okay? They all have each other's backs. Okay? So even if they don't know the whole story, even if they didn't see the whole process that led them up to here, the judge is never going to say that the police were wrong. The judge is never going to say that the legislation shouldn't have been passed. Like, these people are all on a fucking team, and we are all on the other team. All of us. Whether you agree with me on my political stances or not, guess what? You've been forced on my team. Okay? We are on one team. They are on another team, a higher status team that we can never compete with, you know, unless we're all on our best game, which I don't know that that's ever going to happen. But come on, dude. A pattern of political protest resulting in disorderly conduct differentiates the many examples presented by the defendants in support of their claim. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. There's selective enforcement. There's selective prosecution. We have over 300 cases that were not relentlessly prosecuted like ours was. Okay? It's resulting in disorderly conduct because that's the golden ticket charge to charge somebody with that is not breaking a law. The police misuse and abuse that statute to use it against people who are not breaking the law. Okay? When they just want to get rid of you and you're not breaking a law, they call it disorderly conduct. That law needs to be done and over with. Like, this is what happens when you become lazy as a society and you start begging the government to handle everything for you, and you start begging the government to keep you safe and to pay for everything and all of this. We end up in situations where, because we don't police ourselves, because we are too lazy to police ourselves, and we look to the government to do that, you know, we can't manage to, you know, get control of somebody and, control of the situation when somebody is being belligerent in public. We ask the government to take on that role. So now they can use that statute against people like us who are legitimately doing something that needs to be done. Raising public awareness about an issue that a lot of people don't know about. And we're being silenced very effectively by the use of this fucking disorderly statute. So it says the evidence presented by the defendants is primarily focused on the numbers of protesters and the subject matter or political agendas being advanced by each group. Without question, as argued by the defendants, if all things are equal, the prosecution of only those persons exercising their constitutional rights gives rise to an inference of discrimination. That's a quote from U.S. v. Aguilar in 1989. However, in the analysis and materials offered by the defendants, all things are not equal. The evidence presented fails to examine protesters similarly situated, specifically protesters who engaged in residential targeted picketing and were arrested or summoned for a hearing before a clerk magistrate. I was not. Okay? I was never summoned and had a hearing before a clerk magistrate. And Shannon's hearing should not even be on record because there's no fucking record of it. Okay? So this is bullshit. Okay? This is Boston municipal courts literally conspiring with Boston police and the mayor's administration to silence us, to silence opposition against the mayor and her policies. Somebody's listening to me outside my window. That's what it is. That's what it is. And guess what? Nobody cares. Because nobody cares about freedom. Because there's nothing glamorous about our freedom. There's something glamorous about fighting for a accused murderer who's being framed. But there's nothing glamorous about fighting for the freedom of everyday people. It is significant that the arrest in this case occurred in a residential neighborhood. Every single part of Boston is a residential neighborhood. Okay. And that was a part of our argument too, that every single, the places like downtown and stuff where most of these protests have occurred are residential neighborhoods. There's residential parking in those neighborhoods. There's many homes in those neighborhoods. Downtown is a residential neighborhood. So, it says it is significant that the arrests in this case occurred in a residential neighborhood at 7:30 a.m. The defendants were targeting the family home of an elected representative, Mayor Michelle Wu. The overwhelming examples cited by the defendants in support of their motion involved protests that occurred in public places such as government buildings, roadways, and train stations. There is a major distinction between disturbing traffic in a roadway, that's a crime, or engaging in a protest at the State House, like when the people pulled their pants down and showed their bare asses in the State House, another crime, as opposed to engaging in a disruptive, disorderly conduct at the family home of an elected official. So you can block a fucking roadway, you can show your bare ass in the State House, but do not disturb the peace. Do not make any noise in the neighborhood where the mayor lives, because you will be relentlessly prosecuted, even though you're not a criminal, even though you've never committed a crime or even been accused of committing a crime at any other point in your life. You will be relentlessly prosecuted for waking people up at 7 a.m. past the time of the noise ordinance. I'll tell you, I live in Common Square. Okay? I could not explain to you how loud it is here between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. when the actual noise ordinance is in effect. Between the music, the cars driving by, the multiple gunshots multiple times a week that you can hear from my bedroom window, fights, drunk people walking through the churchyard that I live next door to, making noise, fighting with people. Construction that starts promptly at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, all over here. By the city. That's disturbing me. But that doesn't matter because they don't like what I'm saying. And I'm annoying to them. So I must be relentlessly prosecuted. So again, I'm going to read that line again. Okay, let it sink in. Like, I almost want to cry for, like, my children's future in this world right now. It says, this is a judge, okay? This is like a 71-year-old judge in Boston Municipal Court, okay? Somebody who's been in this position for a long fucking time. Judge Kathleen Coffey, who established the homeless court division of the Boston Municipal Courts, who regularly gives people special treatment and discriminates against people, okay? She says there is a major distinction between disturbing traffic in a roadway or engaging in a protest at the State House as opposed to engaging in disruptive, disorderly conduct at the family home of an elected official. The latter is more intrusive and harmful to the sanctity of private lives and the safety of the targeted subject and their family members. It's intrusive to stand in front of 17 Augustus Ave, where the mayor lives, and shout, "Free speech is not a crime." But it's not intrusive to pull down your pants and show your bare ass in the State House. And it's not intrusive to block major intersections and roadways or harmful to the sanctity of private lives. To block roadways, prevent people from their freedom of travel, prevent people from getting to work on time, prevent potential emergency situations that first responders are trying to get to, but they can't because you're blocking a major fucking roadway. It's what we do. Standing in front of 17 Augustus Ave is more intrusive and more harmful to the sanctity of private lives. Addressing protesters, female protesters by name to intimidate us and called us vulgar names, okay? He came outside multiple times, videoing us, calling us names, insulting an elderly disabled woman who was out there protesting, telling her to go back to the town that she's from, okay? Her husband, on multiple fucking occasions, has tried to intimidate female protesters by addressing us by our first names and by telling us to go back to whatever town we're from. And he knows whatever town we're from. I'm just not saying it. He has addressed people by name and said, like, you know, for an example, like, "Fuck you, Mary, go back to Swampscott." Okay? And why else would a grown man say something like that other than to intimidate the woman to say, hey, I know who you are. I know what your name is. I know where you live. Like, go away. Right? But we, the women in sundresses outside, sundresses and flip-flops outside of the mayor's house, yelling, free speech is not a crime. We are intrusive and harmful to the sanctity of private lives and the safety of the targeted subject and their family members. So's your vaccine mandate. This substantial difference was recognized by the Boston City Council and resulted in the passage of Boston City Ordinance 1663, which, again, where's the judge getting her information? Because the ordinance is 16-64, which states in pertinent part, it shall be unlawful for any person to engage in targeted residential picketing between the hours of 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. For the purposes of this section. Targeted residential picketing means picketing, protesting, or demonstrating with or without signs that is specifically directed toward a particular residence or one or more occupants of the residence, and which takes place before or about the targeted residence. As noted by Mayor Wu in a letter dated February 28th to the Boston City Council, targeted residential picketing that occurs late at night, privacy and sanctity of the home, and is particularly harassing and detrimental to the sleep and well-being of families, including seniors and families with children. If we were harassing the mayor, then why didn't she file for a harassment prevention order? If our protesting is detrimental to the sleep and well-being of families, why can you run a lawnmower and a jackhammer at 7 a.m.? Your lawnmower, your jackhammer, your big fucking trucks, your beeping, your sirens on your fucking emergency vehicles do not have more rights than I do. It's that simple. So there were, I will tell you, a number of people who were glad that we had Judge Coffey because she was a reasonable judge. And she's citing the ordinance from the mayor. Okay. And I would not be surprised if she is going to be retiring very soon. Okay. I would honestly give it weeks before she is no longer working. Because that's what happens after a public official has dealt with us. They get a promotion or retirement. And for whatever reason, she's well past the retirement age, I've heard. So I'm sure she'll be gone soon now that she's dealt with us. And the only thing that we're facing now is a jury, right? Because we're going to be going to trial for disturbing the peace 2 years ago. So I think that's basically all I want to say here today. I've been on here for almost 2 hours, and I think it's interesting that only 2 people throughout the time that I've been on here, or maybe 3, 4 people who I know personally have commented on this live stream, and there's been over 100 viewers for the majority of the time that I've been live. Right now it says that there's 183 viewers, which is a lot for me for live streaming. I don't typically get this many viewers while I'm live. But I am making note that only 4 people, and it's 4 people who I know personally, are commenting at that, but it's only 4 people are commenting. So I have no idea who's watching this, obviously. And I'm glad you're watching it. Thank you. Please be more interactive. Please comment, like, share, react. Whether you agree with me or not, the conversation needs to happen. So unless you're all feds, informants, and police, the all 180 of you, please interact with the video. Comment on it, react to it, share it. Go to the YouTube and the Rumble and subscribe to my channels there. The channel name is People's Press Media. If you need the links to those, I can send them to you, because like sometimes, since I have such small accounts, or because I'm shadow banned or whatever, if you just type in the name of my channel, you can't find it. If you're not already following me on Facebook and Twitter, please do that. I'll always call it Twitter. I will never call it X. Both of my accounts on those platforms is Catherine Vitale. And like I said, over the next couple of days, I'm going to actually take a deep dive into the ordinance and the process for passing the ordinance, because it's been 2 years and we need to talk about it, and people need to know that it actually has nothing to do with noise. It is and has been used against us. This is not something that happened 2 years ago and then just ended because vaccine mandates ended. People stopped protesting Michelle Wu because she started forcing the police hand against us, and they used us as examples for people who wanted to step to the administration. And I mean, I hate to say it, but it had seemed to have worked, because once they started arresting us, the crowd that actually showed up to oppose her dwindled to nothing, and nobody shows up to oppose her at this point ever that we hear of, which is really fucking sad. A lot of people will talk a lot of shit on the internet or even in private conversations, and then they'll go smile in her face, shake her hand, walk down the fucking street with her. We're well past that. It's been now almost 3 years that she's been in office, and if you can have a conversation in agreement with the fact that she's fucking up our city, I don't understand why you would ever be pictured smiling, standing next to her, walking down the street with her, or shaking her hand. Doesn't make any sense to me. And to me, that means you are not a person of integrity if that's something that you're doing. A year or 2 years ago, I overlooked certain things like that because I figured maybe people just don't get it yet. But we're almost 3 years in. There's no more excuses. She's destroying the city of Boston, and she needs to be held accountable, and she needs to be shamed and embarrassed every time she's out in public, as do many other, or if not all other, elected officials and public officials, people who are appointed, whatever. These people shouldn't feel comfortable to walk in public because of what they're doing to us. There's many different aspects of government. There's many different aspects of being a public employee that all of these people, even people who claim to be on our side, they could be doing things and they're not. Okay. So, according to my morals and the things that I know about history and the things that I don't want us to continue to repeat about history, is that when somebody is a traitor, they need to be treated as such. And when somebody is a sellout, they need to be called out for it, and they need to be made to pick a side, because we're at war. This is a war between good and evil. This is a spiritual war. Without getting into the bigger conversation of Agenda 21 and what we're headed for, and the United Nations and the World Economic Forum and all of that, we need to be doing this work locally. We need to be building locally, and we need to be educating locally. And anybody who is actively working against our efforts, or supporting anyone who is working against our efforts, can be considered the enemy. Somebody who puts on different faces and acts one way around a certain group of people and a different way around another group of people is not an honest person, is not somebody with integrity. And if you're going to be somebody like that, then you're not on my side. I don't consider you an ally. I don't consider you somebody who is for the people. I consider you somebody who is actively working against the people and therefore an enemy of the people. But anyway, yeah, so Michelle Wu made an ordinance for herself in her progressive neighborhood, right? And city councilors passed it. I don't know if it were to get points with Michelle Wu in the new administration or because they genuinely don't understand how the First Amendment works. But if we can be arrested for saying shame on Wu and for, you can also be arrested for saying Free Palestine and fucking LGBTQ pride and Black Lives Matter and all of that. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And to everybody who turned their backs on us or ignored our situation because they're not anti-vax or they think that we're crazy or, like whatever the case is, like I hope that you understand. I hope that you have grown to understand over the past 2 years. I hope that if you don't understand, then you will eventually. Like I will continue to pray for everybody who doesn't understand what's going on now, because we're in a very dangerous time. And in Boston, not many people understand. So it's scary. It's scary to think that my children are going to grow up in a world run by brainless puppets. And I hope that by shining light on this issue the way that I plan to in the coming days, it's going to get people back into the conversation of what's going on in Boston and with Michelle Wu, and hopefully get people interested in coming into the fight, or getting started up again or getting prepared for the 2025 elections where we can replace her, and or getting involved in the recall Wu efforts, because that's also something else that we're going to be working on. We are looking for a lawyer still. We need an attorney to help us draft a petition to recall her. The petition needs to be drafted before we can start collecting signatures. So if anybody knows an attorney that might help us with that, please let me know. You can go to my website, boston2boston.com, for information and sign up for updates when anything happens. But just know that I am the only one editing the website. Okay, so sometimes it takes longer than I would like for me to get new content and new newsletters and stuff out, because it's me almost alone with the help of like 2 or 3 other people, like with their input. But I'm the one producing the stuff. I'm the one editing the website. I'm the one editing the videos. I'm the one with the TikTok account, with the YouTube account, doing a lot on my own and things that like I'm not very well versed in. Just bear with me. boston2boston.com is the website. And it will be updated when I'm able to update it. But you can sign up for emails. I will email people when there's an update made. And you can go to the Recall Wu website, which is linked on the boston2boston.com website. And we can keep you updated on the efforts to recall Wu, or you can communicate with us if there's any way that you can help with those efforts. And as always, or typically, there is a donation link on the website. Donations go directly to me and will be used for paying for the website, paying for printing of the newsletter, paying for keeping my Wi-Fi on, paying for whatever needs to be paid for me to keep the website going, keep the newsletter going, keep my accounts up, whatever. That's what donations would be used for, is for me to keep all the things going. I don't work and I don't have any income. So everything that I do is like volunteer work for free. So that's why I have a donation link on there. BostonToBoston.com, subscribe to emails, and stay up to date on efforts to recall Woo. Okay. So that's that. I actually probably should have had this going for the whole time, but yeah, I noticed there's some more people watching now than were watching earlier. I'm actually about to get off here now. I've been on for over 2 hours. Our motion for selective prosecution in our case for our arrest from protesting in front of the mayor's house 2 years ago got denied. We got the decision today. Judge Coffey from West Roxbury Court denied our motion for selective prosecution, and so we will be going to trial in July over a disturbing the peace charge from 2 years ago. So yeah, and just like Sean says, like I just said about our judge, is probably going to retire soon. Sean's judge would retire after making a motion in his favor. So he basically like got in trouble for making the motion in Sean's favor. But yeah, so corruption is disgusting. Corruption is everywhere. Unfortunately, your average person isn't motivated enough to pay attention to what's going on or to do anything about it the way that they are when a case is publicized and glamorized, such as the Karen Reed case. For whatever reason, we only seem to care about things when it's the cool thing to do or when everybody else is on board. Why everybody's not on board with preserving freedom of speech, I don't know. Why everybody is so complacent with going along to getting along and doesn't see the fucking flashing red lights in front of their face to get up and do something is really, really scary to me. Freedom is not a thing anymore. And hold on. Freedom is not a thing anymore. The most important way to maintain our freedom is to be able to have freedom of speech, freedom of the press, to be able to alert the masses of people in one way or another when something's wrong and we need to be paying attention to something. But we are seeing more and more every day journalists being jailed, being held political prisoner. We watched what happened to Turtle Boy. We're seeing in real time, I suppose, what's happening to Alex Jones and Steve Bannon and whoever else. I don't know. But there is no more freedom of speech. I understand that a woman is being framed for a murder that she did not commit. However, this is just as important, if not more important, than a murder case. Okay, this is our freedom. I hope that Karen Reed gets justice. I hope that John O'Keefe gets justice. I hope that Turtle Boy gets justice. But our freedom is gone. somebody needs to fucking start stepping up to help those of us who have been fighting, okay? Because eventually, like, we're probably going to be thrown in jail too for longer than a fucking, the couple hours that we've already been in jail. So people need to pay attention. People need to wake the fuck up. People need to help. People need to assert their rights when they're being violated. People need to get comfortable holding a camera. People need to get comfortable putting their foot down and maybe risk some temporary embarrassment or outcasting or something. I don't know. Okay. I don't like being on camera. I don't like being in the spotlight. I don't like people looking at me. I am not a good public speaker. I hate my voice, but nobody else is doing this stuff. So that's why I do it. I need your help. If you understand what's going on, you need to be doing something. Like, this is an emergency. I need to get something that flashes red lights or something, because that's what it is. This is a major emergency. We have no freedom. Freedom of speech does not exist. Okay? And the only way to protect freedom as a whole is to have freedom of speech. Okay? Freedom of speech does not exist. The less and less, the tighter and tighter their grip gets on freedom of speech, the easier it's going to become for them to completely eliminate the Second Amendment. Okay? The First Amendment and the Second Amendment go hand in hand with each other, because the only protection we have from a tyrannical government is the Second Amendment. And we can only protect the Second Amendment with the First Amendment. And then we protect all of it with the Second Amendment. Okay, so you need both of those amendments. We need freedom of speech, and we need freedom to protect ourselves by any means necessary, to defend ourselves, whatever. But those things go hand in hand, okay? So, yeah, I get it. I've been watching the Karen Read trial too, okay? I've watched days upon days upon days of testimony by the Alberts and the McCabe's and Brian Higgins, and I'm in there too, okay? But this shit is more important, okay? Not me, not Shannon, not something that's happening. Cases just like ours, okay? There's me and Shannon. There's Michelle Effendi. There's Sean Nelson. There's Mass Accountability up in the North Shore. There's Joe DePina. There's other people who are targeted regularly by public officials because of the things that we say and the way that we tell the truth and do it loudly so that other people are aware of what's going on. There is a massive effort to silence us, okay? There's a handful of people across the state of Massachusetts who are regularly violated and abused by public officials and by the courts because put that in the kitchen, in the microwave. Because we tell the truth and we can't be bought, we can't be controlled, whatever. There's a number of us, not just Turtle Boy. So please have respect and dignity enough to fight for your own freedom and to pay attention to the own ways, the ways in the regular everyday life that we are all being violated. The ways that we are all being violated by the courts and the police and the elected officials and everybody. Okay? Pay attention. We're losing our freedom. We basically don't even have. We're not free. We're not free. We're just fucking stupid. Stupid, brainless fucking slaves is what we are. Literally. Like, we're slaves with no idea that we are slaves. We're slaves who are not aware of the situation. Okay? We need to fucking do something about it. Those of us who understand what's happening need to be educating other people. Stop having meetings in rooms full of people who get it and start going outside and talking to people who don't get it. That's the only way we're going to get somewhere here. And hold public officials accountable. Don't take fucking pictures with them. Don't shake their hands. Don't fucking smile at them. Don't walk down the street with them. Shame them and embarrass them in public, okay? That's what needs to be done. I'm going to go now. It's been 2 hours and 15 minutes. Again, I will be back tomorrow and for the next few days to talk about the picketing ordinance that was passed in 2022 by Mayor Michelle Wu and the Boston City Council. That was literally a city ordinance that was put in place to target a specific group of people, myself included, and then used as a vehicle to criminalize free speech in Boston. So, and it doesn't get enforced anywhere but at Mayor Michelle Wu's house. We have tested it. This was a self-serving ordinance that was written and passed and put in place just to protect Michelle Wu that does not get enforced anywhere but at 17 Augustus Ave. So much so that the police refer to it as the policy regarding the mayor's house. Okay? Michelle Wu is a queen. This is her regime. She reigns over the city of Boston, and we are the peasants that disagree with her. So we must be jailed if we dare to disagree with her out loud in public. Okay? That's what it is. I know I'm making light of it, but it is a real fucking serious thing. People need to snap the fuck out of like fantasy world and Karen Reed world and pay attention to the things that are happening to people every day. Okay? Thank you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the YouTube and the Rumble, People's Press Media. Please interact with the video. Like I said, now I have over 200 viewers. For the majority of this video, I had well over 100 viewers. And for some reason, there's only like 5 people in the comments, if that. Unless you're feds and informants that are watching me just for database entering purposes, please interact with the videos so that I can get better viewership so that people, more people can see and hear about what's happening. And if you're hate watching, thank you, because my viewership is up. 200 viewers while I'm live is a lot for me. So thank you also to the people who are only watching me because they hate me, because you're helping with my algorithms. So I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Go to the website, boston2boston.com. Thank you.